Girls. Girls.
What?
Kitties are like, are you playing or are you fighting? I don't know.
Hello and welcome to another reading vlog. So this week I am doing books based on my perfumes. So my perfumes are Femme Fatale, Lost Cherry and Angel. So I'm reading books based on those three. I've already read some. So for Femme Fatale, I chose Cannelle et Vanille's cookbook. Back in the day, I used to be a food blogger, and this lady was also a food blogger at the same time, and I used to adore her blogs. They gave me so much inspiration and her photography was gorgeous. So I picked this up and I have bookmarked a few recipes. I'm not always gluten-free, so a lot of this doesn't appeal to me, but it is quite thorough if you are gluten-free. There's a lot of recipes and everything too, from like basic starter doughs as well. So I do recommend. The next book I picked up was Femme Fatale, which is about a vampire going to a PI to help investigate murders another vampire is committing. It's teeny eatsy beatsy, but I gave it 2 stars. My dudes, what in the bad Wattpad fiction is this? Like, it was just so cringy. And that, I mean, not just the story, the plot line, but the characters and the dialogue and the pacing was just off. And I thought, okay, Cannelle, don't worry about like everything else. At least there's going to be sex in here. You know, at least you're going to get some spice. I mean, like a paragraph of like barely described bits and pieces and goings on. It's over. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. So fast. Like, the main thing about erotica is it should be erotic. You know, it should be good. I don't know who this is pleasing. Like, I understand fast-paced books being a necessity for some people, but there's nothing of substance here. There was no good characters. The plotline was weak, son. The dialogue was just sad, and the sex was pathetic. So this was a 2 stars. I know I'm speeding through this, but I'm going on my date, so I have to hurry. But the next book I'm reading was for the Lost Cherry, and this one's a lost ticket, and it's about a man that got a woman's number on a bus ticket many years ago. He now has dementia. He never found the woman because he lost the ticket. And so people on the bus, I think, try to rally to try and find this mystery woman before he fully succumbs to dementia. So we'll see how it goes, but I must dash, and I will see you soon. Good morning. Sorry for the absolutely frenetic video yesterday. I was rushing, and I really wanted to film before I went. Probably should have just waited until today. So I am still reading The Lost Ticket. It's feeling a bit mid at the moment. It's like a 3.25. I'm going to give it 100 pages. My gaze keeps getting caught in my wildflowers in my front yard. They're absolutely stunning right now. It's feeling like 3.25, so I'm going to give it 100 pages and then see how I feel about it. Otherwise, I'll be going on to the next book, which is Cherry Beach. So we'll see how I feel today. I had the date last night. I'll talk more about it in detail on my other channel, but it was nice, but I'm uncertain. You know, I wasn't getting that feeling like, oh, maybe this could be the one, but I was getting enough there that I think that there's potential. So I just want to get to know him better because we have chemistry. I find him attractive. He's very intelligent. The friendship thing isn't quite there. So I really need to be best friends with my partners. So I just need to get to know him better and see, is there that kind of connection there or not? But we'll see. I'll think about it, and I might go on another date with him. I'm just going to think about it a little bit first. But today I'm going to go meet up with my bestie just for some lunch, and that's all I have planned today.
Thank you. Sweet. I missed you too.
Okay, so I have finished the rest of the books. Let me just go through them. So The Lost Ticket, I did decide to DNF it. It's a very sweet book, but it just wasn't packing a punch for me. I wasn't connecting to any of the characters, and there was no sort of emotional resonance or depth for me with the book. And so I thought, yeah, let's just DNF it and move on. But I think a lot of people might enjoy it. It's like a very sweet, fluffy piece about trying to find the one that got away, I guess. And then I picked up Cherry Beach, and I DNF'd this really quickly too because I didn't like the writing style. So it wasn't for me, and the characters weren't my jam either, but basically you've got two Australian girls and their friends, and I believe it is a sapphic romance. But from what I read, I didn't get to that part. But I would say if you like reading a lot about place, you want to hear Melbourne described, or you want to hear Toronto described, then this is for you. There was a lot of descriptions of location in that book. But yeah, I decided to DNF it. So those were the two books for Lost Cherry by Tom Ford, Lost Ticket and Cherry Beach. And then for my perfume Angel, I chose Angel Mage by Garth Nix. Now, I normally do like this author's works. This one, however, was pretty disappointing. I gave it a solid shot. It contains angels, and I love reading books about angels. However, the angels in this book was so lame. They were basically slaves to humans. So humans could fashion these icon rings and could call upon the angel to do things like make my clothes brighter. And I'm like, no, what? There was some extensive world building going on, so I admire the skill with that, but just, it was boring. It was so boring. And the premise was you've got this woman who was very, very skilled at calling angels. She could call multiple angels and wasn't actually taking her life force away whenever she called them. And there was this one angel that was like the guardian of the city. There's a hierarchy of angels, and this was an archangel. And there was a plague that was caused, and the entire city collapsed, and she was thought dead, but actually she went to sleep in a tomb for 150 years and then woke up and decided that she needed to find these 4 people with whom she could set about bringing back the archangel into sort of forgiveness, because they were cast out. I think it was very hard. It was quite dense as well. It was quite dense, and it was just not enjoyable. I wasn't enjoying it, wasn't getting into it. And I'm at the point where I know when I'm really into a book, and because there are millions and millions and millions and millions of books out there, I'm not pushing through anymore with books that are just okay. You know, unless the only reason I do push through is because either I like a character a lot or I'm really interested in the plot. So if it doesn't have any of those hooks to pull me through, it's going to be cast aside. So because this vlog was so unsuccessful, so we had Cannelle at Vanille's cook. That was decent. I did enjoy that. And then Femme Fatale, which was a 2-star, really weird, not sexy book. That was for Vanille Fatale perfume. Then we had Lost Ticket and Cherry Beach for Lost Cherry, both DNFs, and Angel Mage for the perfume Angel, also a DNF. So what a doozy, what a doozy. But look, I did just choose all of these books based on the name of my perfume. These were not books that were already on my TBR. I just scrolled through Goodreads, tried to find some whose premises seemed okay, and it just didn't pan out, but that's all right. So because it was so abysmal, I didn't want to put this as its own video. What's the point? So I instead am going to combine it with the other vlog, which is the next one on the schedule. Kids and Kitties, choose my books, as I would have said in the intro to this video. So we had Indy, my beautiful daughter. She chose Modern Fairies, and she chose it because the cover was very pretty. Now, this book was an ARC from NetGalley, and I chose it because I loved the author's other book, Delphi. I thought that was fantastic. There's a lot of Persephone themes in that. I loved it, and the writing style was up my alley. This book, however, different story. So I did choose to DNF it. It was the way it was written. So basically this is a book about fairy tales, which the fairy tales themselves that are told, quite dark and delicious, really enjoyed those. But they're being told by these group of aristocrats that are meeting in these literary saloons. So it's this like historical thing that used to happen, I think, was it back in the 1600s? I'm not very good with era and time, but all these rich people would meet up and tell stories. And I hated that part. So all of the dialogue and conversations and characters that were there talking about the fairy tales and then talking about the themes and their opinions on those fairy tales was completely boring for me. Could not care less, literally. And it was, the first chapter itself too was once again really dense, really hard to get into, like not easy to read. So after a couple of fairy tales, I decided to DNF it because every bit in between the actual fairy tales was boring me. And I thought at the end of this, there's no way that this is going to get more than a 3.25 stars for me. It's just not. So it was just a case of this particular book that this author wrote in this particular style, set in this particular time period, just wasn't up my alley. So I did DNF that one because, once again, I don't want to be rating books less than 3.5 stars. And I know my voice is a bit trash. I'm under the weather. I'm about to go to a PT session too. But the next book that I'm currently reading was Bluebell's pick. So I will put the footage in here. I basically numbered all of the books on my TBR and I put them on pieces of paper and I threw them on the floor, and the cats just went up and touched a piece of paper, and whatever book that correlated to, that's what I've picked. So I've just put up the footage over my voice here. And so Blue ended up picking Murder, Lamplight, Express. Oh, and it was basically like Sherlock Holmes crossed with The Witcher, with supernatural, with female leads in a historical Regency setting. So fingers crossed, this is the spot for me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it because I love the first one that much. So I've just started reading it. I literally read one chapter already. I'm enjoying myself. So I think it's pretty easy with books, you know, when you're really enjoying it. But there's still this weird sense of obligation to keep reading and give it a try, and that completionist pressure to actually go all the way through it and then give you a full review. But it's like, well, it's not doing anyone favors just giving negative reviews and negative ratings. It's just, if it's not grabbing you, DNF it. I think it's better. You don't affect the author's ratings, but at the same time, you can still write why it wasn't your jam as well. So that's going to be pretty good. I was going to tell you all the other books, but I think we'll just do it as we go. Besides my PT session, I do have the appointment with the psychic that my sister set up. So we'll see what they have to say. And other than that, it's just a cozy day at home in this very autumnal weather. Okay, so let me tell you about the rest of the books I read this week. No, Nova, that's not a cat scratcher. No. So we had Murder on the Lamplight Express, and I gave this 4.25 stars. So this was a sequel, and it follows the same formula as the first. Like it's really formulaic. So if you like that and you find comfort, I guess, with things that have a formula, then you'll love this. Me personally, now I've read this one, if it's going to be the same, I'm kind of bored. It was still good. It was still twisty and plotty and with extravagant characters. This one was giving bullet train vibes because it's set on a haunted train, and there was a lot of murder going down. Once again, multiple murderers. So it's not just finding one killer, it's finding all the killers. Human, monster, the undead, who knows. There was also some sapphic flirtation in this one, and I was liking it, but it didn't go anywhere. I don't think this one's really a romance book, but still very cool. Like I said, you know, Witcher, supernatural, Sherlock Holmes kind of vibes, and enjoyable. 4.25 stars. And then my daughter recommended to me Whispers of the Dead. She chose this because it was giving goth vibes. She thinks that's up my alley. So I did read it. It was about a woman known as The Undertaker. And yes, they do reference the WWE, The Undertaker, in that. It's giving Kate Daniels, but far less serious and interesting. And I love the Kate Daniels series by Ilona Andrews. It's one of my fave paranormal series. This one, the writing style just didn't cut it for me. You have the main character who's a type of elemental, not to be confused with a witch, and hers is a retro skill, which means she can touch dead people and go back to live their death. And so she's in hot demand in the paranormal community. There seems to be a sort of romance brewing with a shifter, but it just wasn't giving me anything. You know, there was a fun, sexually ambiguous vampire best friend that dynamic that I knew. I was like, I am probably going to ship her more with this person than the shifter. And I know she's not going to end up with this person. So I was like, no. I decided to DNF it. And then Nova's pick was Morbidly Yours. So this is a romance. You've got grumpy sunshine trope, friends to lovers trope. You've got the main character named Lark, who is this very bubbly American artiste. And then you've got the grumpy Irishman named Callum, who is a mortician. And basically she moves to Ireland after becoming a widow, and she moves in next door to his funeral home and basically just inserts herself into his life. So I didn't love the beginning. She was quite pushy and forward, and I was like, oh, boundaries, you know, respect people's boundaries, lady. But I kept pushing through, and I'm glad. It was very sweet. I really, really loved that Callum was a demisexual. So I am also a demisexual, and it's sort of that we don't really, we can see that people are beautiful and that we're attracted to them and that there might be chemistry, but we don't feel that need to have sex until we have established quite a significant bond with them. So for me, it's always been exclusively dating and in love before I want to do that. Otherwise, it's just, it doesn't, the switch just doesn't get flicked, and it's it's frustrating, I guess, for everybody involved, but that's just the way my sexuality works. And it was nice to have that written in a very realistic way, and I appreciated it. And the fact that it is also, you know, there's nuances within the demisexual spectrum as well. So I just loved that representation. I liked Callum. Like, I'm a sucker for a tall, dark and reserved, but also underneath simmeringly passionate man with depth, who falls first and is quite romantic. And I just love it. I love it. Tall, dark and handsome. And so that was my jam. It was my jam. I thought it was sweet. It hit the spot. I've given it a 4.25. I like it. You know, it's not super deep. It obviously does tackle the feelings of grief because she has lost her husband. And with him, there is a bit of a, look, there is sort of like a fake marriage trope in play, in that he's going to lose the funeral parlor to his money-hungry father unless he's married by the age of 35. It was a stipulation in his grandfather's will because he wants to keep it in the family. So there is that element there. I loved all of the Irish culture that was talked about, and the setting, obviously, and the language used. It was very cute and wholesome. The sex scenes were really good, though. I was not expecting. I thought because of the tone of the book, I was going to be more of a fade to black situation, or a bit more tame. But no, no. There was descriptions, and I like a lot. So I was very happily surprised by the sex that was occurring. It was yummy. It was nice. Liked it. Did. So obviously there's a friends with benefit situation there as well. And normally I don't like these tropes, but in this case, I didn't mind. They worked. So to sum up this vlog, so we had the perfume mini vlog in here, which was a bit of a bust. We had the kids and kitties pick my books. So we had Indie with Modern Fairies, which was also an art from NetGalley, which I chose to DNF because it just wasn't my style. We had Bluebell with Murder on Lamplight Express, which was a success, a 4.25. I did enjoy that little murder mystery with a paranormal element. Then we had, Sylvie with Cold Hearted, which I forgot to talk about. That's how forgettable it was. This was a DNF for me. This is a paranormal romance. It seems to involve shifters. Once again, a woman comes into a very quiet, snowy, cold town. I can't remember which one it was, but she's trying to escape her troubled past. She's an outsider here. She has to live at a lodge. It's like all the people that work in this town live at this particular lodge. And there is a guy that just instantly dislikes her. And it was too much. Like, sometimes I like the, you know, Edward Cullen. Oh, it looks like he doesn't like me for some reason. What have I done? Why does he not like me? But this guy was just too mean, too rude. And it irked me. It was too much in my face. And then there was an essay that occurred early on in the book. And I wasn't vibing with the story. I didn't like the writing style. None of the characters were grabbing me. And like I said, the setup for this romance, if someone is too nasty and rude, I'm not going to ship it. I only enjoy enemies to lovers in fantasy. If you're a real life person and you're being a massive dick, like, go and get an attitude adjustment, my bro. Not cool. Like, that's toxic behavior. So I did DNF that one. Then Valentine recommended Whispers of the Dead, which was, you know, an urban fantasy, paranormal, about a woman with powers, helps solve murders. There's a growing attraction there for her. That wasn't also a DNF for me. And then I ended up with Nova's recommendations, thank you Nova, with Morbidly Yours, a very cute contemporary romance, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was fantastic. Mice are also involved. There's some bonding over mice. Just thought I'd mention that. So that's everything for this week. Until next time, stay well, Star Child.